Okay, it looks like we are live. Hello, readers, and hopefully now listeners, and welcome to the first episode of our new podcast called Finding Her Voice, where we'll be centering on movies directed by women that either are important to the overall cinematic canon or that we just particularly really loved and think need to be celebrated a little bit more. It should come as a little surprise to see how infrequently women in the film industry are offered the same opportunities as men, which for this writer, and I'm assuming many others, has made watching and celebrating films directed by women all the more important and significant. So to be able to do a podcast like this is fun and exciting for us because we're, in our own small little way, trying to celebrate voices that deserve to be heard more. I am joined today and hopefully for future episodes by my editor-in-chief, or our editor-in-chief, not just mine, Gabby Bondi, and also Alana Chase, a fellow writer on the website. So to kick it off, I wanted to ask each who your favorite female director is.
My favorite female director is, and I thought about this a lot actually because it's sad that you really don't have a lot to choose from in comparison to, all the male directors. So I went with Sofia Coppola, and admittedly part of the reason is because I've seen all of her films, and she's probably the female director I've seen most of their films, like compared to other female directors, if that makes any sense. And but yeah, I just really like kind of the way she directs and kind of those little moments that she likes to capture. And it's not like other films where she really has like a distinct style, and I don't think many other directors have that. So yeah, she's my favorite.
Do you have a favorite movie by her?
Probably, well, I would have to say Lost in Translation, even though I'm not the biggest Bill Murray fan. I just really like that movie.
I only ask because mine's Marie Antoinette, and I know there's a lot of people who disagree with that opinion. So I always recommend them to go and see it like one more time because I think it's really quite amazing. But Alana, what about you?
I actually was going to mention Sofia Coppola. I love Marie Antoinette. It's my favorite film of hers, but I would have to say that my favorite female director is Ava DuVernay. When I saw Selma, I was like, this is a different kind of director. And she has said herself that she's not a historian. She's not trying to be anything that she isn't when she's directing a film. She's a storyteller. And I think that in a lot of films, the story is almost more important than the way you kind of approach it. And I think that she stays really true to the heart of a story. But her direction around it is perfect. It's very precise. It's very nuanced. And I like the angle that she approaches things from.
I agree. She's a director who now I can't wait to see anything and everything she does. I think she's great. And personally, at the moment, because my mind tends to change on directors quite a bit, right now I'm really loving anything I watch by Gina Prince Bythewood. I don't know how you pronounce her last name. That seems too like dilated. But after seeing Love and Basketball and Beyond the Lights, I was pretty hooked on just about anything she does for the rest of her career. I still have to see one of her movies, I think, and she has the TV show coming out soon too, so I'm really excited. But today, the film we've chosen is a movie called Advantageous from 2015, and it's a sci-fi family drama. And the synopsis is, in a near-future city where soaring opulence overshadows economic hardship, Gwen and her daughter Jules do all they can to hold on to their joy together despite the instability surfacing in their world. For those who have seen the movie, they know that's a pretty thin overview of what the film actually is about, but it's really at its heart a story about motherhood and womanhood and what it means to live in a world where, people are trying to fit you into a mold, but taken to the extreme. So to kick things off, I just wanted to know what you two felt about it, because personally it was one of my favorite films last year, and I couldn't stop thinking about it after seeing it.
Yeah, I really liked the movie. I thought it was really interesting, and I mean, I love that it really touched on all these different themes. And I really, yeah, from that like synopsis, I had no idea what to expect, because I was like, okay, this is sci-fi, like kind of dystopian, but then I wasn't quite sure where the story was gonna take me until, I got a little bit further into it, and I was like, yeah, it's fantastic, and I I mean, yeah, it definitely had me thinking. I actually watched it with my brother, and he was just like so unnerved by it, because he kept saying, this is so depressing, this is so depressing. And I'm thinking, like, I didn't even go in with that perspective, like I didn't even feel like it was depressing. I'm like, well, yeah, duh, this would happen. I mean, it kind of shows.
Well,
I mean,
the "It's Would Happen" is actually really, I feel like, a key point to the podcast, not the podcast, God, the words. Key to the movie, I think, because there's that line where, like, the CEO is saying they would rather have women at home than angry, unemployed men on the streets. And, it really rings true, I feel like.
yeah.
So,
I
but yeah,
think
no, I thought
for
that was a key point to it.
I think for a film that is set in the future, and obviously there are a lot of elements that are sci-fi and a little bit dystopian, and kind of some of the themes are kind of even like horror themes of psychological tension and those like thriller motifs. I think for a film that has all of that, it's very it's very present, and based on the synopsis, I didn't glean that from that. I thought that it would be heightened sci-fi and something that was kind of distant, but watching it and being able to relate to basically everything that was happening to the main character was, it should be disheartening, but it was something that I think a lot of women, especially today and especially in the entertainment industry, they face that, and it's very real. And I think it's a very different viewing experience if you're a woman versus if you're a man watching this film.
I think so too, because I know a guy who watched this too afterwards, and he didn't have a similar response at all. And not just that he didn't like the film, but I was struck like it was a very emotionally powerful movie, and he kind of just viewed it from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be the difference in, who views the film and who can relate. And I definitely think there's a different, um, you know, like there's just a different point of view in general, I think, when you're watching this film, which kind of leads me into the question I wanted to kind of talk about, which is, do you think the subject matter in the film was influenced by the fact that the director was a woman? And do you think a male director could have made the same film?
I'm gonna answer your second question first. No, a male director cannot make this film. I just think that, I mean, Alana really kind of explained it. Like, I think this movie means something a lot different to women than it does for men. And I mean, I think you watch it and you kind of just instantly relate to all of these, issues the main character feels, and the decisions she makes. You understand why she makes them. You understand how her daughter feels. You understand her place in the world and why she feels all these different kinds of pressures. And it didn't really need extra explanation. You just knew, because this is, I mean, even though we're all young, we understand that is a part of being a woman these days. It's sort of like I can't think of the word, but it's how it is. And I definitely think that requires some kind of personal experience and knowledge, and that would be something only a female director would have. And I think that definitely influenced, the movie, the story, and even the performances.
I definitely agree. Taking the story, a male could take it and make it, but having a woman direct the film, coming from the perspective, and this might be a kind of weird phrasing to say it, but growing up as a woman, as a girl, kind of have an expiration date. You can't be a certain person after a certain age. And especially this film definitely touches on that. You hit a certain age and it's like, you can't be the things that you want to be anymore because you're not beautiful enough or you're not capable enough. And in the entertainment industry, I think it's 35. After 35, no one wants to book you.
Unless you're playing a mom.
Yeah.
Who's somebody 50 years younger than you.
Mm-hmm. Or you're incapable. You're kind of the crazy cat lady, or the doting mother, or the whomever. But definitely, a male director could take it, could make it, but it wouldn't feel right. It wouldn't be the same film that it would be when a woman directs it.
And yeah, that definitely reminds me of that one of the first scenes where the daughter's out with her school friends and they see her mom for the first time and they're like, that can't be your mom, that's your mom, like she doesn't look like a mom, something like that. And it struck me right away because I was just like, well, how do their moms look like? And I just think that's funny that, like Alana was saying, like there's, once you reach a certain age, you have to be a certain way. People like have these expectations. You have to change, and you just can't naturally progress into your own person, regardless of your age.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like, there's like kind of time stamps that people expect you to reach while you're a woman, and I feel like you get asked certain things as a woman before men might. Things like, when are you having kids? When are you getting married? When are you going to settle down? There's just like, there's certain expectations, and then like once you also get to a certain age, you get judged more for how you look and how you're pulling yourself together. And I think that idea of an expiration date is really on, like, I think it nails it on the head, especially for this film, where that is essentially what's happening to Gwen, is that you're too old now to, to run this company and to be the face of it. We need a younger model. We need to retire you. And in the end, she is kind of being, expired. Essentially, she's replaced completely. And I think, we see that a lot in Hollywood, and I would be interested if that is how the director Jennifer Phang came to kind of like, come about these ideas. A recent example that somebody pointed out online was, Marissa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr. were both in a romantic comedy together in the 90s, and they are the same age, and yet he's playing a superhero and she's playing the superhero's aunt.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of an interesting discrepancy between the two. And so I kind of wanted to talk about the themes a little bit. The film plays with the idea of what it means to have an identity and how it influences who we are and how we behave. By the end, the lead's identity has essentially been stripped away, or she's been killed, if we want to look at it literally, and stuffed in a hollow shell. What relation do we make to how women in real life are told from day one how best to doctor who we are and how we act?
Well, I personally come from a kind of household that was very like, oh, you're a girl, you shouldn't be doing that, you should act a certain way. So I was, like, grilled since a child, like since I can remember, that I have to be girly and feminine, and I couldn't be too boyish. And so I like instantly related to that because I just grew up, with like that kind of traditional thinking, which luckily I was able to get past. But But yeah, I definitely think that that is a real element to growing up as a girl. And so to see that in the movie, like I said earlier, it's just something you instantly relate to. You just get it. You really don't even need that much exposition or explanation. You just kind of fall in sync with it. So yeah.
Growing up as a girl, being a woman, you have years and years of backstory to a lot of experiences that other women have. And it's not to say that the kind of woman that I am, a white woman, cisgendered woman, that I can relate to every experience of every other woman. But there are certain things that are very universal. And I think it's very, very unfortunate, but a lot of what happens to women here happens to women everywhere. And the biggest thing that we see in this film is that idea of an expiration date. You can't be someone after a certain age, and there's not a lot of spaces carved out for you. Um, Even as a kid, there were not a lot of opportunities for me just because I'm a woman, I'm a girl, and not being able to, I don't know, do the things that you want to do because you're not the traditional kind of model of femininity is disheartening. It's either you have to be the pinnacle of, that perfect girl, that perfect woman, or be a man. If you fall in between somewhere, it's kind of you're just left there, and there's not a lot of opportunity for you.
True. And I thought the idea that they played with about being the quote unquote ideal woman was really strong because they mention, about her being younger, but they also say you're racially ambiguous and you kind of look like a model. And I thought that was really interesting because, there's definitely a type of look that people associate with beauty and, like you said, with femininity. And I thought, you know, I think every girl, I would assume, and again, I can identify, like you said, with every woman's experience as a cisgendered woman, as a white woman. But I do think there is the universal theme of like growing up and thinking you have to be placed in a certain box or that you don't fit in that certain box, and like how are you going to grow up and figure yourself out and be the ideal quote unquote. So I thought that was really interesting, and it's one of the bigger themes is of course femininity and being a woman, but they also tackle things such as aging and sexism and race and motherhood. Again, is a big one. And I didn't know if there was one that maybe you guys identified with the most, because personally for me, it definitely was just strictly the experience of being a woman. I'm not a mother. There's certain things I can't relate to in it. But I thought the idea of, you know, being a woman and what it means that you have to sacrifice was really poignant. And it was a moment that really stuck with me was, her finding out that she was going to have to give up her job, that she was possibly going to have to give up her life that she knew with her daughter, all in the name of providing her daughter a better life because she instantly was given a tougher one being born a female.
Yeah, I think you hit it in the nail. Yeah. No, I mean it's true. I was gonna say motherhood really struck out to me, even though I am not a mother. But
No, I didn't.
yeah, but as a daughter, I could say that I was really struck by that very because I also have a close relationship with my mother, and she's given up a lot for me to have the best that she could possibly give me, and I think that I mean in that way, I related to it, and I kind of understood that mother's desire because of my mom's desire to do that. And I I also related to, again, via my mother, because we're so close, so I'm like, same brainwave sometimes. But, um, my mom's in her 50s, and she's always concerned about losing her job because she knows if she loses it, because she's an older woman, it would be much harder for her to find another job. And that's just the way it is. Like, she knows that's how it is, and she doesn't necessarily complain about it. She just worries about it as like a common fact. And it's just it's sort of like unsettling that it's just something you accept. And again, that movie kind of brought it up, like, yeah, I mean, she's getting pretty much laid off from her job because she's too old. And they want someone racially ambiguous, someone who is basically would just appeal to everyone. And it's also a thing in society where you're constantly seeing, more and more people kind of try to reach that ideal, to be that perfect woman, to be like, the one that like all men love or all women love. And it's just like a constant pressure. And I think, yeah, like the movie just tackles all that in its way through this like story. So yeah, I don't know. Again, like, I just related to a lot of it, but I think the motherhood one really kind of hit me harder, just because once I understood what she was giving up, that she was taking that risk of losing herself just so her daughter can have hopefully a better life than hers. That was tough.
Yeah. The film for me, two of the biggest themes. I'm not a mother, but like Gabby said, being a daughter, my mother has worked her whole life, and she's very, very good at what she does. And she's in the medical field, and it's dominated by men. But she wanted to have children, and she wanted to have a career. And I would like to think that she has instilled this in me, but she wants to have a family, and she wants to have a career, and she wants them at the same time. And I think that that's not a big ask, because men get that all the time. They are allowed to have an illustrious career and lots of happiness and lots of money and fame, and they're allowed to have a family, and they're allowed to do both at the same time. My reality at home was that my mom was working, and my dad retired when I was very young, and he took care of us. And people kind of were like, "Oh, he's a stay-at-home dad. That's kind of weird that he's not out there, and your mom's at home." And I think viewing the film, it wasn't my reality at home that there would ever be, I don't know, a time where a younger model would be traded in, but that there is a pressure that somehow she's not as great of a worker as a man, or that a man could beat her out at a job. But I think that a lot of the things that women sacrifice in their life, men don't have to. Like, if you want to have children, you have to sacrifice your career. And if you want to if you do age, which we all do, then you're sacrificing love or respectability or capability even. And men are allowed to get old. They're silver foxes. And the other aspect of the film, it reminded me of that infographic of the age discrepancies in male leads and their female opposites in films. Men continue to get older, and their female love interests, are about the same age. To be like 27 and 21, and a male lead who is pushing 60, and his female love interest is still mid-20s. And I'm like, yeah, that's how life is.
That reflects my everyday. Not quite. Yeah, no, I agree with both you guys and like what you took. I shouldn't have been so flippant about the mother comment, but I took, because I totally understand the daughter point of view now too. I wanted to shift gears a little bit to just the filmmaking in general, because this film obviously wasn't made on a mega million dollar budget, a multi-million dollar budget. It was definitely very lo-fi production, but I personally thought it added to the film. So I was curious if you guys thought maybe the low production value took away from the film or distracted, or if you were kind of in the same mindset that it being so stripped bare kind of added to the eerie atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree. The eerie, it definitely added to the eerie atmosphere. I mean, there were parts of it that I didn't quite understand, that like skyscraper like moving thing. I didn't know what that
The
was.
moving thing, which part? I'm trying to think. I remember the beginning when there's like the terrorist attack on the big skyscraper that was supposed to be showing the it was like the class discrepancy, and it was essentially, I think, the lower class attacking the upper class, but like the 1% gotten even smaller essentially. So I think, is that what you're talking about, or just
No, there
how
was
the
like a
building looked?
building that yeah, just how the building looked. I think that was only like maybe a few times it kind of took me out of the movie, just because I
Yeah,
was wondering like what is that? But that was more of like a personal like curiosity that I had watched.
sure.
But other than that, I actually, yeah, I think it definitely gave it like this eerie, kind of creepy vibe, just kind of, it's very chilling and sterile. I
Yeah,
think definitely kind of the strip there, and I mean, there was a issue in the film where women were becoming less fertile. So I did that definitely like kind of increased the feeling, the tension of like kind of like the world is kind of ending, but it still felt very modern, like I mean, well, modern as in like present.
hmm,
So it was just, and I mean, I guess because it was so, I mean, there was also kind of one thing is like it wasn't such a black and white world, but it was very gray, and that I felt like that was kind of like a metaphor that I don't know, kind of came through the imagery and all that.
well, it was all so washed out that I feel like that actually might be really relevant to the film, is the
Right.
idea that we live in a world of gray, and like everything looked kind of faded. Like it
Mhm.
was like, despite it being a futuristic movie, or like in the near distant future, it also looked like we were looking back. Like we were looking back at something that hasn't happened in our timeline. Like it was so. I love the imagery, but I'm gonna let Alana before I go back to my favorite moment in it that has the lo-fi ness.
I think sterile and barren are really great words to describe the the style of it. I do think that kind of overly stylized films take me out of the viewing experience more than something that is a bit more washed out or hazy. And this might be an odd comparison, but as I was watching this film, it reminded me of when I was watching Sybil, that movie with Sally Field, I think, from a long time ago. It reminded me of that kind of hazy, sort of desaturated kind of look. And it might just be my mind making up things, making associations, but that's what it reminded me of, like an old film that didn't feel like it had happened while I was alive. Um, so I think the themes of it, the contrast of the themes that are very relatable to me as a woman watching the film, um, in contrast with the style of the film that seems very out of my reach, very intangible. I think that kind of juxtaposition was really nice. Um, there were a few like little inconsistencies where I didn't understand like the skyscraper and some of the technology. Certain things I didn't understand, but I think that was just me being curious and wanting to know more about
Yeah.
everything in the film.
The moment where the kind of stripped down nature of it really hit the hardest for me, which I think added to the scene, was the moment where Gwen goes in to have the procedure done to her, and she's hooked up to the contraption on her head, and it's like sucking her life essentially out of it. I know technically it's supposed to be taking her lifeness or likeness into a new body, but just seeing all the lights dance through the wires, I thought was maybe one of the most effective piece of imagery in the film. And clearly it meant something because it's on the poster. But I think if there had been more going on, if it had been really busy and a really heightened, like trying to pull on your heartstrings type moment, I think it might have lost some of its edge. But in the end, because we're just focused on her, knowing her sacrifice and seeing it, moment by moment happen where she's essentially losing herself, I thought it made it so chilling. And it's the image that, to me, like weeks later, even now, because I watched this film a little while ago, it's like haunting. It pops into my head at random times, and I think, again, I think if there had been almost a higher production value, it might have taken away because they might have tried to do too much instead of doing something practically.
Yeah, I think because it allows you to really like kind of focus on her face in those final moments because I mean, like they essentially said, even though it's making a copy of her likeness, it's so powerful that, it pretty much kills her. And so you kind of see her last moments where she's like alert and then she's just like, she just drops her head and then it's just I mean, seeing that as opposed to seeing all the light beams travel into the new person, like, I mean, I think if it had more money and it did all that, you wouldn't really be looking at her and seeing her sacrifice. You would just be seeing this next step.
Agreed. I think in a certain way, you're forced to confront what is happening to her. If there were a higher production value, I do think that they would have done more, but they might have done too much. But since it is so simple, and it's a simple but a very it's a loaded image. It's very complex, and there's a lot of weight to it. I think that because it was so simple and on a lower budget, they didn't do as much with it, and I think that's very smart because it's so stripped bare that you have no choice but to acknowledge what is happening to her and the implications behind that. And I agree that image stuck with me for quite a while after I watched the film.
I don't want to say yay, but because I had the same reaction, a little bit yay. But no, so to lead kind of into, the end of this segment, I guess, I kind of just want to talk briefly about the idea of women directing genre films, and if this makes a good case to keep giving them the reins to do so, because I think a lot of people or industry professionals seem to think that if women direct films, they should only direct certain kinds of films. You see a lot of times where these independent male directors do a really small film and then get handed the keys to the biggest, like oh my gosh, I'm losing the word.
Like blockbuster
Yeah, but
franchise.
yeah, that essentially. They get Jurassic World, the guy who did,
Yeah, Colin Trevorrow, yeah.
or they get Godzilla. The guy who did this small movie called, what was it, Cop Car with Kevin Bacon, gets a new Spider-Man. And all I kept thinking was that the director of Obvious Child would have killed that. But women don't get women need to prove themselves more before men to be able to be given these big chances. So I was wondering, watching this movie, what kind of case does it give, women directors and getting to kind of jump into the genre scene a little bit more, because I think we need more of that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a firm believer that women can do anything, but especially, yeah, I definitely think this is a great case, for women to direct genre films, and I mean, it just, again, like as a person who enjoys genre films, it's just like it's a no-brainer that a woman could direct it and do it well and have a story that resonates with, all audiences. And, I mean, like you were kind of, to piggyback what you were just saying, like Patty Jenkins is the first female director to get over $100 million budget for Wonder Woman, which I really hope is great because that's going to make a big difference. But other than that, yeah, I definitely think that, that, yeah, more women should direct genre films. I definitely think that they should, you know, these, Hollywood producers or whatever should, all these Sundance hits, like, I mean, come on, just watch them and give them a chance. And I don't know, I just think it's also, too, just the casual sexism in Hollywood that, even if they made the greatest, smallest films ever, it's still, I'm so pessimistic, but it's
Me too, obviously.
it still wouldn't change a lot of minds, but I definitely think that by like what we're doing and what other people should be doing is like talking about them and kind of maybe hopefully convincing one person out there to make a difference and show that a woman can direct a genre film and do it well and do something that everyone will love, because at the end of the day it is about the bottom line. So there you go.
I agree. Girl power. I think women can do everything that men can do. I think the difference is opportunity. There's not a lot of doors that are being opened for women who want to do essentially the same thing that men want to do. They want to make great films, and I think that there are tons of great films made by men, and there are tons of great films made by women, but not as many. And I think this is a great door opener for women in genre films, and I love genre films, so I'm on board with this. But I think that a lot of times, especially for women in the entertainment industry, writers, directors, there's just not a lot of open arms. Men that want to make films, you do great once, and you're given the world. Kind of, all the doors swing open, and you're allowed to go through whatever channel you want to and make the things that you want, and they hand you money, and you can do it. But for women, it's kind of, okay, you did good this one time, but next time you want to do something, come talk to us, explain yourself, what's going on, and then we'll see if we want to let you do these kinds of things.
Yeah. I always thought that, or I thought recently, if 3 films that are a good indicator that women are ready and have been for a very long time to take on these genre films are these low-budgeted films such as this. There's A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, and there's The Babadook, which are 3 of the best of their respective genres of the last 2 years. And, they're getting more work, but they're getting really small films again. And I just think, if they were given the same opportunity to kind of reach that, the bigger tentpole film, we could be seeing some really amazing stuff, because look at what they did with so little. And I think it's an indicator that it's really time for a shift in Hollywood. And obviously this shift should have happened decades ago, but it hasn't. So the hope is that moving forward, this talent starts getting celebrated a little bit more, especially films like Advantageous, because Jennifer Phang created a really phenomenal film with some really amazing performances that we didn't even touch on because I didn't think to add it into it. But like Jacqueline Kim is amazing as Gwen. Like, she made me cry. Like, I wanted her to be nominated for an Oscar. Like, I thought she was fantastic. So just so I guess to wrap up, I really love this film. I hope people go and watch it now. It's on Netflix. And I hope you guys come back for our episode 2. We're going to, I think, do this on a monthly basis just to not kill our schedules. And especially so we just don't stop doing it because it takes up too much time. But the next film is we're going to do How to Make an American Quilt, which I've heard about, but I've never seen. And it has Winona Ryder. It has like circa 90s, I think, for the writer, which I love. So you guys watch it. And maybe send us questions or watch us live next time. It could be a fun little interactive thing. And I also suggest within this time period that everybody go and do or participate in some way the 52 Films by Women Challenge. Obviously, you don't have to just do 52. If you want to do more, that's fantastic. I think I'm maybe one ahead of what we're supposed to be at right now, mainly because I haven't watched a lot of movies this month. But and Alana and Gabby, where can people find you on Twitter, on social media?
You can find me at Gabrielle Adele with 2 L's on Twitter. And yeah, I mean that's my main place.
Yeah, Twitter is my main place. You can find me at Lane, not Lawn, LANENOTLAWN. That's my main place is Twitter.
And you can find me at Allison AJ with 2 L's and a Y. And go and check us out at TYF Official or go to our website at theyoungfolks.com. And we can't wait to do the second one. Go watch Advantageous. Bye.
Yeah.